Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Wednesday, June 9th, 2010. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the U.S. It's 4:30 p.m. in London. In Mexico City, it's 10:30 a.m. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, please phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. If you're outside the U.S., our AOL Instant Mail address is CATEX-TV. Last night in Washington, D.C., Stephen Strasburg, the rookie for the Washington Nationals, struck out 14 Pittsburgh Pirates and he won the game. It was an event in Washington, D.C., which whipped up almost about as much enthusiasm as a presidential inauguration. Now we'll go to our real news. Well, State Farm, like a good neighbor, is there, but in some instances it won't be there in the future. They're going to pull out of the U.S. National Flood Insurance Program. They're going to stop writing policies under the plan because it's been caught in a legislative gridlock up on Capitol Hill. The company says that it's going to continue to service existing policies and that their agents will continue to help customers with flood coverage by making available the National Flood Insurance Program's direct distribution channel. State Farm spokespeople said that the recent disruptions in the federally backed flood insurance plan contributed to the company's decision to pull out, but those disruptions are not the only reason. The company wants to concentrate on its core business, on the products it provides, and on meeting the needs of its policyholders. Even though State Farm has about 800,000 policyholders who have flood policies, the company spokesman Doug Supple said that the amount of paperwork involved when disruptions occur in the National Flood Insurance Program is overwhelming for State Farm. Here's what he said. He said, say we have a catastrophe with hail, $200 million in claims in one afternoon in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you've got 50,000 cars in Tulsa, so we've got a lot of adjusters on the ground there. And then let's say there's a flood on the Mississippi River somewhere. Then we've got to take people off of Tulsa and send them somewhere else. That's another piece of the puzzle, but not the only one. He said moving these policies into NFIP Direct will let us concentrate on our customers' needs and our products. State Farm plans to change its participation in the NFIP beginning October 1 of this year. Until April 2012, State Farm will continue to handle claims occurring before the policy transferred. After that, FEMA handles it. Swiss Re made some news this morning. They launched 2 new corporate bonds totaling 750 million francs. That's about $652 million US. One bond was a $500 million Swiss franc bond due in 2015. The other one was a 250 million Swiss franc bond maturing in 2012. Swiss Re is making good use of the low interest rates and the strong value of the Swiss franc to raise and roll over debt. The franc, by the way, is at a new record high against the euro today, and there's no sign of any intervention by the Swiss National Bank yet to push it back down. Hurricanes, according to Nicholas Hilty at Credit Suisse, could in fact be the real crash test for the cat bond market. Hilty says that since 23 storms are predicted in the U.S., cat bonds with their collateralized structure could prove to be a much safer risk transfer for insurers. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration predicts 14 to 23 named storms during the American Atlantic hurricane season. Dave Fields at AIG's P&C division Chartis says an extraordinarily large event may impair traditional reinsurers' ability to pay, but that's not a concern with the cat bond because it's fully collateralized. Remember, buyers of Zurich Financial Services Camp Re 2005 cat bond were the first cat bond investors to lose money after Hurricane Katrina. Standard & Poor's has also said that the part of the Avalon Re cat bond, which covers energy industry owner Oil Casualty, matured on June 7th, paid out parts of its principal to the insurer after losses. Munich Re and Swiss Re have both estimated that cat bond sales may climb about 40% this year as maturing notes are replaced and new investors enter the market. new investors beware. Of course, if there is a loss, you run the risk of not only losing your interest, but you lose your principal. In our daily update on British Petroleum, there's a lot of finger pointing going on. Crews are collecting more and more oil from the bottom. Here's a picture excerpted from the live video cam down there. You see a lot of it is still coming up. BP is beginning to wonder what they're going to do with all of the oil that's still coming up that they've been collecting. They did make an announcement yesterday saying that they plan to use the money that they will earn from selling that oil that they've collected to establish a, make sure I get this right, a national or a natural habitat park somewhere in Louisiana. But that still doesn't deal with the problem of what exactly are they going to do with the oil. One suggestion that's been brought into the fro is a floating platform. Instead of just using these various ships that are filling up at the rate of one a day, could be the solution to process most of the flow. The British oil company is also considering burning the oil. I don't know how they'll be able to sell it if they burn it, because they need to sell it to raise money for their natural resources park. But they're considering burning it by using a device called an evergreen burner made by Schlumberger. This would turn a flow of oil and gas into a vapor that's pushed out of 12 nozzles and then ignited without creating any visible smoke. Scientists are still trying to analyze the flow. They are saying, though, this morning that the amount still spewing into the Gulf might be considerably higher, greater than what the government and the company have claimed. It's possible that, in fact, they could be dealing with a much bigger flow than anybody's cared to admit yet. The administration's point man on this, Coast Guard Admiral Thad Allen, has written to British Petroleum CEO Tony Hayward demanding more detail and openness. He's also said that he reminded him that the company is accountable to the American public for the economic loss caused by the spill. And speaking this morning on a network news show, the chief operating officer of BP continued to contest the government's assertion that large, massive underwater oil plumes have been detected. He said that there are no, quote, large concentrations of plumes. Of course, it comes down to a definition of what, how you define a plume. One bit of interesting news, next week, in a event that will have similarities to the throwing of the Christians to the lions in the Roman Colosseum, Tony Hayward himself, the president of British Petroleum, will appear in front of the House Energy and Commerce Committee in one of those nationally televised congressional hearings that only Congress can do. Mr. Hayward had better be well prepared and wearing his suit of armor. It's going to be a most interesting hearing, and everybody will be watching it. For the first time on American TV shows, the business shows, the possible specter of a bankruptcy for British Petroleum has begun to be mentioned. This has not been raised in the previous 50 days, but we began to hear it this morning. Speaking of the Gulf of Mexico, there is another complicating factor here, and that's, of course, these hurricanes that sweep into the Gulf with some regularity. Here's a hurricane that went in August of '08. When these hurricanes come in, they obviously disrupt the flow of oil, and according to experts this year, the hurricanes of this season are going to interrupt the oil and gas production in the Gulf more than last year. According to the Energy Information Administration, simulations that group has produced predict that hurricanes will reduce Gulf production by a cumulative 26 million barrels of oil and 166 billion cubic feet of natural gas this summer. Producers, of course, shut down offshore oil infrastructure and platforms that are in the path of hurricanes to prevent harm to workers or, God forbid, a release of oil into the Gulf. The stock market in the U.S. is up about 56 points now. Chairman Bernanke of the Federal Reserve is testifying on Capitol Hill as we speak, and he's saying that